What if one of the most isolated and resilient medieval communities simply vanished without a trace, leaving behind only silent ruins and unanswered questions? Nestled on the edge of the Arctic, Norse Greenland was once a thriving outpost of Scandinavian civilization for nearly 5 centuries, yet by the late Middle Ages, the Norse settlers mysteriously disappeared. How and why did this dramatic story end? This is the haunting saga of Norse Greenland, a tale woven with exploration, survival, conflict, and the relentless forces of nature. It all began at the close of the 10th century, when daring Scandinavian explorers led by the famed Eric the Red ventured westward and founded settlements on Greenland's icy shores. These hardy pioneers carved out a life in this frozen land, building farms, churches, and communities that mirrored those across medieval Europe. Among their settlements, the Eastern Settlement stood as the largest, with hundreds of farms and even a bishopric, a sign of its significance. Farther north, the Western Settlement was smaller and more scattered, nestled near the rich shores of Disco Bay where walrus ivory, a prized luxury, was harvested for trade. But Norse Greenland was far from isolated in spirit. These settlers were explorers at heart, their sagas alive with stories of lands beyond Greenland, places they called Helluland, Markland, and Vinland, now believed to be parts of modern-day Canada. While they never permanently settled these distant lands, Norse voyages continued for centuries, driven by the search for timber and new opportunities. Their world stretched beyond the ice and sea, connecting them to a wider medieval Scandinavian cosmos. Yet Norse Greenland was never alone. The land was once home to the Dorset people, an Arctic culture predating the Norse arrival. Later, the ancestors of the Inuit, the Thule culture, made their appearance. Relations between the Norse and Inuit varied, at times peaceful, at others tense, such as what befell the mysterious Western settlement. Historical accounts reveal a chilling episode in the mid-14th century. A Norwegian church official, Ivar Bardarson, journeyed from the eastern settlement to the western one with the mission to assess its churches and tithes. What he found was staggering: no Norse inhabitants, no Inuit either, only livestock roaming free. Livestock that thrived without human care. Could this have been evidence of conflict or something more perplexing, a withdrawal into silence, perhaps even evasion? Some modern historians speculate that the wealthiest Western settlers hid from taxes rather than being violently expelled. What really happened remains a mystery, shrouded in incomplete records and riddles. Meanwhile, trouble was brewing in the Eastern settlement. After the death of Bishop Alf in the late 14th century, no new bishops arrived, severing a vital link to Europe. Around the same time, records tell of deadly encounters with the Inuit, with 18 Norse Greenlanders killed in one violent episode, a substantial loss for a small community. Despite these distressing signs, life clung on, marked by solemn ceremonies such as marriages within stone churches like H. Valsey, whose ruins still invoke the ghosts of bygone days. Curiously, written records from early 15th century visitors suggest a society still functioning: priest officiants, weddings, even executions for witchcraft. Yet within decades, all traces vanished. What struck the final blow? Archaeologists and historians have wrestled with this puzzle for generations. Once celebrated finds like a Burgundian-style cap once suggested Norse survival into the late 15th century, but scientific dating later questioned these ideas, shifting timelines earlier. Today, most scholars believe Norse Greenland had ended by the mid-15th century. So why did this community, resilient for centuries on the edge of the known world, disappear? The answer is layered and complex. Once attributed to Inuit aggression alone, the story has grown richer with evidence of worsening climate. The centuries after Eric the Red's arrival saw the birth of the Little Ice Age, a period of colder, harsher winters and unpredictable seas. For a society reliant on farming and hunting in marginal lands, each icy season brought new setbacks. Renowned scholars have debated adaptation versus failure. Jard Diamond famously criticized the Norse for clinging to European customs and ignoring Inuit ways. However, more nuanced studies reveal a society that gradually adapted, shifting diets to sea resources, using walrus hunts for prized ivory, and continuing voyages to secure timber. Their story is less about stubbornness and more about desperate resilience. Economically, Norse Greenland suffered as well. The arrival of elephant ivory on European markets diminished the value of walrus ivory, a key export. Political restrictions on trade with Norway tightened access further, especially after the sinking of an official Greenland ship in the late 14th century. This isolation deepened, cutting Norse Greenland off from the lifeblood of commerce and ecclesiastical support. Adding to this, dangerous sea ice made voyages perilous, altering ancient routes and no doubt stranding or blocking supply ships. When Greenland's last bishop died and no successors came, the colony's spiritual and cultural lifelines frayed. Papal letters later whispered of piracy and decay in Greenland, hinting at a world left to chaos and neglect. What followed is buried in uncertainty. Did the Norse retreat quietly, fleeing the island by sea? Were there battles with the Inuit that shattered their hold? Did starvation silently claim them one by one? No definitive evidence explains their fate, only fragments and plausible stories. Yet framing Norse Greenland's end solely as a tragedy overlooks a remarkable achievement. For nearly 500 years, they endured and thrived in one of the harshest environments on Earth. Their saga reminds us of human tenacity and vulnerability in the face of climate, isolation, and change. Today, the mystery invites reflection on resilience, adaptation, and the consequences of environmental and social shifts, lessons still vital as our world faces its own uncertainties. Enjoyed the video? Give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more. See you in the next one.